All right, let's get stuck into things now with my panel tonight. Sophie Elsworth, media writer at The Australian, joining us from Melbourne, and One Nation Chief of Staff, James Ashby. Thank you very much for joining me, both of you. Now, a bit of news out today about a woman by the name of Teela Reid. She was on the referendum engagement group for the Voice to Parliament. James Campbell from the Herald Sun and the Daily Telegraph has gone and done some digging, and we've found another example of someone who is an architect of the Voice to Parliament, saying the ultimate goal here is reparations.
It is about the reconciling of the balance. You know, there does need to be reparations here. There does need to be compensation. There does need to be these tough, I think, decisions and reparations for what First Nations peoples have lost. That's undeniable.
Now, I suppose it's no surprise when you've got people like her running around and Thomas Mayo and others, the shine is starting to wear off. You might have seen last week, Anthony Albanese at one of his press conferences had to list off everyone he could think of who supports the referendum, supports the Voice to Parliament, in some effort to say, oh, no, nothing to see here.
Every single sporting code, AFL, National Rugby League, Football Australia, Cricket Australia, Tennis Australia, Olympics Committee, major business organisations, Business Council of Australia, the Australian Industry Group, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, individual businesses, faith groups, Catholic Church, Greek Orthodox, Muslim groups, Hindu groups, Jewish organisations, all combining to say yes to the Voice.
Blimey, Charlie, I mean, you'd think even Skippy was supporting it. I mean, Sophie, every time it comes out, one of these people who's been intimately involved in designing and pushing for the Voice to Parliament, they want reparations, they want a treaty, they want land back. This, it seems abundantly clear, even though the government don't want us to know it, is what the Voice to Parliament leads to.
Well, Caleb, great to be here. I think this is actually a really good thing that these voice architects are coming out and saying exactly what they're saying, because there's no confusion about where this voice vote is heading. It's pretty clear. They want compensation, they want land back, they want treaty. The list goes on. So I think this is actually really good that they are telling the Australian public that this is what they believe, because the Australian public need to know exactly what they are voting for. And there's an awful lot of confusion out there, Caleb, about exactly what the Voice is. Now, I was at an event with Thomas Mayo last week in Melbourne. There's a story in The Australian on this in tomorrow's paper, so have a read of that. But he's lashed out at the media and said that there's been a lot of positive stories about the Voice with a lot of negative headlines, and this is damaging us. So I think they're in real trouble, the Yes campaign, and I think Australians really want to know what this Voice is about. And for those who are confused, they need to listen to people like Teela Reid so they know exactly what they are voting for and where this is heading.
Well, there's two different stories here, right, James? Like, you've got Linda Burney last week at the National Press Club saying, I'm going to tell the Voice to Parliament what it should be working on. That's not the point of the Voice to Parliament. The Voice to Parliament's meant to be telling the Parliament, the executive government, what it should be working on. But then she says, it's these four key areas. It's not going to be talking about Australia Day. That's plainly false. Then you've got the people who've worked on the referendum working committee coming out and saying, no, we want the reparations. We want the land back. We want the treaty. I mean, everyone's saying, well, I don't actually know what the Voice to Parliament would be or what it would look like. Sure, we don't have a legal document to tell us, but all the people who've worked on its creation seem to know what they want it to be.
Well, let's just take a look at what Anthony Albanese had to say there. He said quite clearly all these groups are behind the Voice to Parliament. What Anthony Albanese fails to tell the Australian people is they're all recipients of federal government money and their funds largely rely on agreeing with the government of the day. Now, it is becoming more and more obvious, and I think as time goes on, look, there have been groups out there trawling through the social media pages of Thomas Mayo, this woman here, Marsha Langdon. We know what they've said in the past. Now it's a case of ensuring the rest of the Australian people get to hear precisely what this Voice to Parliament is all about. Now, the Voice is only stage one. Stage 2 comes treaty, and that is where we are going to be in for billions and billions of dollars worth of payments to Indigenous groups, and how they disperse that money amongst their members and Aboriginals themselves. No one knows. This is the biggest con job Labor have ever laid out. I haven't seen Peter Foster for a long time. I'm not sure whether he's on Anthony Albanese's campaign here, but it's the worst con job Australia will see in our history.
I just can't believe that the government, Sophie, isn't taking a look at this and sniffing the wind and going, hang on a minute, maybe we need to backtrack a little here. Because how embarrassing will it be for the government if they take this thing to a referendum and it doesn't get up? I understand they'll use it for political gain because they'll say, oh, you know, it was all brought down because Peter Dutton and the opposition didn't support it or whatever. They'll try to get some political mileage out of that. But ultimately what will happen is they will set back the cause of reconciliation purely because Anthony Albanese wants to have his name up in lights as Gough Whitlam 2.0 and look what I did. Well, if you don't pull it off, surely you're toast.
Well, Caleb, this morning Linda Burney was on Insiders, ABC's program this morning, and David Spears asked her many questions about The Voice, which she could not answer or was not direct in answering. And I think people see straight through that. He asked her about Australia Day. Will they have a say on Australia Day? She did not answer the question directly. And to put it really bluntly, Caleb, I can't really articulate this in a nicer way, but if this vote fails, it is a real middle finger up from the Australian public to corporate Australia, to the elites, to the Canberra bubble, that they are not going to be told that they must go along with something for the goodness of our heart. I think it's really important that everyone in Australia does listen to both sides in the coming months, because it's got very nasty, and I think it's going to get a lot nastier. But I think when big corporates and big wealthy people and politicians start telling mum and dad out in the burbs who are struggling with their mortgage at the moment, they've had 12 rate rises, they're struggling with their power bills, and they're telling them to vote this way, I think it does the reverse.